So in case this is the first video of mine that you're watching from my students, you should first do the problem on your own. And the next step is you should look at my printed out answer key. And if you're still confused, then you should watch the video. So you have sort of a procedure there. And so let's say you got this far. You're probably just watching this because you're curious anyway. But let's pretend you already did the problem and you already looked on the answer key that I posted in Blackboard. And you're still confused about something that I did. And so now I'll go through and tell you what I'm doing. Okay, first I read the problem. Frank's Deli purchases a used pizza oven for $875. After 5 years, the oven will have to be discarded and replaced. So this is one of these models where we're doing depreciation, a linear depreciation of value over time. This is a common thing they do in economics. They're going to discard the oven after 5 years, and it will have a value of $75 when they do so. Find the linear equation that gives the value of the oven over the 5 years it will be in use. And so you don't have to draw this, but if it helps, you can draw this little grid that shows you what's happening. So the value is not actually going down to 0, it's going down to some other value. So down here is $75, and that time will be 5 years, but it starts off at $875. Okay, so we want value as a function of time is equal to, and I'm going to just write, I want you to think mx plus b here. But we're using, normally when we say x and y and mx plus b, x is what we call the independent variable, and y is the dependent variable. Then what that means is x is free to move, and y is the result you get after you move x. So x is your input, and y is essentially what we call our output. This is, x is what we put into our question, and y is the answer. The question is, how much is this thing worth? Okay, so the b is is a value of where you cross the axis on the independent variable. So if you think about this, since x and y don't get reused, I'm gonna just do this, right? V is equal to y and t is equal to x. Since we're not using x or y in the problem, we can go ahead and give each variable 2 letters. So this is y is a function of x is mx plus b, and that will help us keep things straight. So this is where our y typically is. That's our value axis. This is where our x typically is. This is where our time is. Okay? So let's figure out what we have. Now we just use 2 lines fit, sorry, I meant 2 points fit a line. 2 points become a line. And what are the 2 points? The 2 points is 0, 875, and 575. Okay? That's a lot of explanation, but I want to make sure you get them in the right order and don't flip them around. So if it helps you to convert everything back to y equals mx plus b, that's totally fine. All right, so m is change in y over change in x, right? But what is our dependent variable? It's v. And what is our independent variable? It's t. Okay, what is v2? That means value number 2 minus value number 1. You might say, oh, it's 800. But you may have forgotten the negative sign. But that's okay initially, because you see this is a downward sloping curve. You always follow your curves, the way you draw them. You follow them in the same way you read. So whichever way you read down here, from left to right in English, that's the same way you follow the curve up there. Okay? So once you get that, you know, okay, since it's going this way, it's going down, and the slope has to be negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this. It was T2 minus T1. Let's see, we have, I'm having trouble picking a color here. T2 minus T1 is 5. And let's say, you don't know that's 160, but let's say 800 divided by 5 is 160. Okay, so we just know this is minus 160. Okay, and then the problem becomes very easy. You just put y is equal to m x plus b, remembering, of course, that y is v and x is t. And then you can use any point you like. It doesn't matter which one of these, but it's easier to use this guy because it actually is the y-intercept. If you realize that, you don't even have to do this step. Okay? So I'm only doing this to be complete, but in the course of a real exam, you wouldn't have to do that step because it is the y-intercept. And so you could skip that. Now if I gave you two separate points in the middle, then you'd have to go back and figure out the y-intercept. So you've got v equals m t plus b. Now, if you do like me and you make a big mess of the paper, it's better to put a box around your answer. It's not required, but it certainly helps me when I'm grading. And the other thing is you should show as much work as possible without going too overboard. If you make a mistake on something, you can just put a line through like that, rather than scribbling the whole thing out. There's two reasons for that. One is you may accidentally scribble out something that's good, and then I can look through it and give you some credit. And the other reason is you just don't want to make a huge mess out of your paper. Okay, so I guess that's about it for advice on this question.